I'm the patriarch here for this week's Patriotic Art Live, and joined with me is the Donald Kent, the infamous Donald Kent from the US. How are you, Donald?
I am infamous. No, I'm fine. I'm a little curveball today. I got a call from work, and they might need me to run in. So like I might have to leave the show abruptly at some point. Highly unusual
Okay.
situation, but you know how life happens. So this is life happening.
Yes,
But you know, as they say on Broadway, the show must go on. So I'm here for my
indeed.
people, and tell us about the theme today, Paul.
So the theme today is Beauty of Europa. This was voted in by the community. It got about 50% of the votes. So
Hmm.
yeah, let's just get to it. Um,
Yeah, nice.
and Beauty of Europa. Obviously, Europe is a very beautiful place. We've got so many
Mm-hmm.
beauty and multifaceted beauty as well. Beauty in terms of the views, the landscapes that we have, the nations. We have the beauty in terms of the culture, the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of our people,
Yeah.
and yeah, what is how does Europa kind of define how would you define beauty for Europa, beauty of Europa for yourself? And maybe you
Mm.
can talk about that book that you've got on
Right.
screen right now.
Right. So that's a big topic. I want to first start off by mentioning the Imperium Art playlist on my channel. Welcome to my folks. I'm also live streaming from Donald Kent Art on YouTube. And on my YouTube, you can look up the playlist called Imperium Art. And so this was an ongoing documentary discussion with artists and influencers in the distant right in the white identity movement over a few years. And there's at least 50 different interviews from top influencers and artists. So my partner in crime, a lot of you guys know my buddy Nullis, that I've co-hosted shows. He co-hosted the Imperium Art Show, and he wrote a short essay called the Imperium Art Manifesto, and it essentially is taking hold of the narrative of our movement's art. Now, Beauty of Europa obviously goes back centuries and millennia, right? So that is our history, that is our legacy, that is our culture. We all have, that's an expression of our racial soul or biospirit, as some people would say. And it's something that is extremely important for us to reflect back to ourselves who we are as a people, as ethnicities, and as a race. So it's I cannot overstate the importance of beauty in the arts in our struggle. Most of what people talk about is politics, and that's fine as a political problem. However, who are you and why are we letting this happen to us? How did we get in this mess? We have to reconnect with the glory and the greatness of who we are as a people. And so, you know, the beauty of Europa is that pool of love and inspiration and all the our history and our culture. It embodies it all. It carries the story of who we are. And obviously it's a very long and great and diverse story if you think of the different histories and go back even to the Scythians and something of this nature. So I
Hmm.
mean, I could lecture about this. Old Donald Kent can't keep his mouth shut about the arts and such. So the Imperium Art Project, though, is meant to be pointing the arrow into a certain future trajectory. The left has taken over the arts. They have taken over media, entertainment, etc., and they weaponize it against us brutally. And it's had a tremendous success in demoralizing our people and continues to do so. So again, in the culture war, the arts are extremely important. Hence, having a vision for the future, the Imperium art, as I call it, I coined the term Imperium art, and the concept of Imperium being like a sort of a white racial awakening The Imperium is more of a kind of a racial spirituality than a place, if you will, that we recognize that whites are in the age of white genocide, and that we must all wake up racially to that, protect ourselves, protect our children, protect our heritage, our countries, our freedoms, all of it, So hence I, came up with the Imperium Art Show. I would strongly urge people to check it out because you've got interviews from all, amazing people that have deep, deep insights into our cause. Frody Midyard, Mark Collette, Joel Davis, Richard Spencer, Josh Neal, Jefferson Lee. Uh, it, it goes down the line, and it's wonderful. And then our artists in our sphere who are maybe not as well known as these popular influencers, but who are well known within the arts community. And so, anyway, check it out, look into it. And so for me, what I'm going to be doing is trying to look for inspiration because I actually find this topic very daunting. Like the beauty of Europa, like holy God, can I climb? I could climb
It's quite
Mount
a
Everest.
broad.
Yeah, I
It's a
could.
broad topic. I mean, there's so much that we can touch on.
Hmm,
Um,
hmm,
I mean, let's start by just trying to define what
hmm,
a few things. Let's chat about a few things that we ourselves find beautiful about
hmm.
Europe.
Well,
Do you
why don't
wanna?
you begin? Why don't you begin?
Okay,
You
fine.
live there, so.
I do actually. Yeah. Well, you are of the European stock as well,
Oh
but
yeah, of course, of
we've
course.
all got an opinion. But yeah, for me, the beauty of Europe. I would say that uh, there is I think it has to be the culture, the different cultures, and entwined
Hmm.
with the landscapes. I mean, I used to go to Italy a lot as a child, and
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and there's just so much classical, but it, there's so much of the culture that kind of integrates into the landscapes, and
Hmm.
it's just a tapestry of a lot of different things.
Right, right,
The
right.
history in terms of the from the religious perspectives, the
Certainly.
architecture,
Hmm, hmm.
and all of that kind of is built, uh, kind of woven through the different cultural threads of
Hmm.
multiple nations in different
Right,
ways. And
right, right, right.
I just find that whole thing beautiful, and it's distinctly us. It's got a
Oh,
signature, and each
absolutely.
nation has its different fibers, strands of culture,
Hmm,
but all
hmm,
thread
hmm.
from woven from the same fabric. You know.
Yeah, yeah. One thing, I mean, you could pick any one of those, and that alone would be a ginormous topic. So, like, architecture alone is insanely huge and marvelous. And there's so much to talk about in terms of just the. This is the thing that I want to emphasize with people is that it's not just the arts, but it's the technology of the arts. So, how did people learn to do photorealistic sculptures in ancient Greece? How
Hmm.
did they do?
Yeah.
That's going way back, and they were already that advanced. And then, and then of course the architecture alone, it's a kind of a wonder in terms of the math and where math and art meet in engineering and such. And then obviously there's a lot of sculpture integrated into architecture. Churches are obviously a certain particular case, and then painting, of course. um, so these things, just the technology of like figuring out how to create pigments, and how to what oils work, and how to stretch a
Hmm.
canvas. And then the technology of perspective drawing. How do we create space? If we look at Gothic paintings, they're very, very flat, and the kind of the technology of painting had not evolved very much at the time. Like
Hmm.
you can it. I would say that in starting in Persia and definitely in Asia, the technology of painting stopped at kind of the Gothic age where everything was always flat, and then whereas Europe just moved on and on and on and on, and even to the point of digital art, which is what you're doing now. The technology behind that is alone stunning, and it's mind blowing. So it's all part of it, that we don't think of that, but how to construct a painting, how to compose a song, how to compose poetry or literature. All of these things are really, behind the scenes, and they're equally as important. This here's a painting. It's a duplication or a duplicate painting of a famous painting of Rome sacking the temple in Jerusalem. This was a commission by one of my friends. It's like 3 foot by 5 foot. It's a very large watercolor. Took ages for me to do this piece. And since it's such a large painting, you can't really see all the details and the figures. It's a
And what
I did
medium did you use for that?
watercolor, believe it or not.
Okay, wow.
So, I mean, the making a painting in oil, for starters, is quite expensive. And I wanted to kind of, make it, and then less time consuming when you're doing watercolor, etc. Portraiture, the art of portraiture. And then, I don't know, there's just so many wonderful things to look at and think about. So anyway, Imperium Calling is my book. You can get it. You can get a copy off of what's it called? Amazon. If you go to kent-art.weebly.com, it's always at the top of my Gmail, not my Gmail, my YouTube. Sorry, my head's spinning. But yeah, I'm trying to find some inspiration here. What kind of work? I mean, I'm trying to throw a question at you. Like, what's your composition today? What are you going to be working on?
I'm going into my comfort zone and playing with statues. I always like to build up, take existing imagery of statues, but I want to also get more involved with conceptualizing the initial composition. So I have an idea of how I'm going to execute. I'm executing within my comfort zone, which is to take existing imagery like statues and then enlarge them so big so they're on a canvas, and they look on a natural landscape so they look massive, and just to kind of make them a bit more I don't know, just grandiose. And and I'm going to combine the natural beauties with natural figures from the like the greats have already carved out, and just bring them into sort of modern artistry and tech, and create a whole new image built on the back of the greatness of our ancestors. That's like my comfort zone anyway. If you look at the rest of my works or earlier works, I tend to do a lot of that stuff, playing with perspective, depth of field, and things. And and I'm just getting out of composition now. Here you can see this is going to be the main figure of the woman here. I'll just get that to blue. This woman in blue here, statue here. So it's the main statue here, mountains in the far distance, and then in the foreground, you've got the path. And all these different layers of foreground, midground, distance, far in the distance. You can play with the atmospheric perspective quite well to create a real depth to the image through the use of contrasts, and that's generally how I like to work. So I'm just kind of finding a composition that I like, and then I'll start fleshing it out with images afterwards. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to do something conceptual, a bit more conceptual. Maybe something a bit symbolic, but it doesn't always come to you.
Right. I think of that kind of work, like I'm showing some conceptual work right now. It's visual poetry, because when you're doing conceptual art, that it's okay to be dreamlike. It's okay to break the laws of gravity and make something that it has more of a mystical quality to it, maybe even an esoteric quality to it. I find it, I lean towards that. I lean towards symbolic esoteric work. The thing I think that I like and hate about my work is that it's like this piece, for example, is a perfect example. It's very posed. It's very, but that's meant to be, for example, if you go into a church and you look at the stained glass windows or etc., the Stations of the Cross, for example, they're kind of posed little vignettes that tell a story. And it's different from, say, taking a random snapshot out your car window, where you just get sort of nature in its natural form. This is more about kind of the human organization. It's about design as much as anything.
Yeah.
I don't mean to say graphic design. I'm not selling chewing gum, it's like, what am I selling here? The Apollonian spirit, the spirit of the Imperium. So yeah. And then I like having symbols that are uniquely my own. I think that artists who are really serious about creating fine art should create their own iconography, or have iconography that people can understand, and it adds a subtext. This particular sort of lightning bolt with the red and blue is based on Sir Isaac Mosley's symbol for his fascist party. Only he used, I believe it was black and white mostly, but maybe red. But to me, the red and the blue from an American perspective kind of shows like it references the two parties basically. And there's nothing fascist about Democrats or Republicans, but it's meant to kind of symbolize, at least in my mind, that, there's going to be people on left and right of center. So, God, nation, and family, or God, family, and nation in that order, it relates to us all. It doesn't matter what your kind of value system is, but those three tenets of fascism are the core of the health, wealth, and well-being of a nation. So anyway, that gets, me, I go off on my philosophy and these various things, but so yeah, I mean, I'm sort of struggling for an inspiration here. I feel like maybe something angelic would be nice. Some nature themes, architecture. I mean, all of our, like, a little piece of all of these elements would work nicely. But then, like, let's say if I'm choosing architecture, all right, what period? What country? Spain.
I know it's such
Poland.
a broad topic.
That's
And
what I meant.
I'm even struggling here to find an idea to jump out at me, but usually it's easier when I'm searching images off the bat rather than just firing straight from the brain. Like if I went into Pinterest, I'd be able to, find an image, get the image, and then suddenly an idea will kind of come out from that straight away, and then I build around it. I'm just going to continue here, and if I can't find if I can't find a good solid idea, then I'm going to take to the images and see how they can inspire me.
This is a good example of like the flatness and like the sense of like still figuring out the technology of drawing and art, then just the notion of family too. I think that our European family is itself a thing of beauty, that we need to recognize just the beauty in ourselves. It's so strange how like we've othered ourselves, We always think that, oh, I want to go to some place exotic, like Asia
Mhm.
or Africa or someplace. And I'm like, well, what about looking inward? Looking at your own culture and
Yeah,
history. Yeah.
I know.
Um,
I quite miss when I was living in the UK. I'm obviously in Romania right now for for the winter. But I was thinking the other day, I am starting to miss the freedom of.
mhm.
I lived in the central England, not Nottingham, Derby
Okay.
way, and
Okay.
obviously having the freedom around them areas to go and visit. It's just some of
Hmm.
the beautiful heritage castles and
Hmm.
just the beautiful countryside, and
Yeah.
classic pubs. Um,
Hmm.
I miss that. I miss that.
Hmm. Yeah. I,
Um,
I mean, I've never experienced that, so like I'm dying to go. I was just having a conversation with an Irish friend of mine. I guess I can say his name, Jack White. He is a
oh
pretty
yeah,
well
I know.
known
Met him
well
before.
known musician in our sphere from Northern Ireland. And yeah, I won't get into too many details, but I have another friend, a very close old friend who lives in Ireland and has been trying to convince me to move there. And and of course Jack's like, comes visit me and this and that and da da da. And how cool would it be if Jack and I could be in a band together, like to do some kind of musical project together would be so cool. Um, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that is kind of one of the topics of the discussion, how could we do something like that? But yeah, it's tricky because excuse me, I feel like we're all entering a phase right now where we have to kind of buckle down and concentrate on our security, for the things that they've got planned coming. Um, I think you kind of know what I'm referring to, just like, how the globalists are constantly posturing for war and all this
yeah.
shit, you know what I'm saying? So like, it just seems like, yeah, maybe we'd better not be traveling so much right now. It doesn't seem like a good time for traveling.
Yeah, I know what you're
Um,
saying.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, beauty of Europa. I mean, what's the have you ever been to Europe?
No, my little Europe story is that when I was in um, college, I was, a painting major, and
Uh-huh.
just to tell the audience here, I was inspired by this little architectural aspect of how not the architecture, the bas relief here and the painting work together. So I'm stealing this to create sort of a frame for my scene. Oh, anyway,
Okay.
so I wanted to go to Germany to study, to go to do like a summer long independent study, mainly going to Cologne, Germany, which I know I'm pronouncing incorrectly, and then go to the national museums there, and specifically Cologne because they have the biggest collection of German expressionism, and that was the subject of interest for me in college. I was, it just German expressionism really spoke to me, and I thought, I want to learn more about it. I want to, go do a summer uh, sort of independent study retreat and come back and put it towards my fine art degree. You have
Hmm.
to have a certain whatever, art history thesis that you do, something of this nature. And my art history professor, who happened to be a gay Jew at the time, I
What
knew
do you know?
nothing about I knew nothing about the Jews at this time or anything, but anyway, like, he helped me get the paperwork done and sign off on it, but the school just decided that no, that is not a worthy cause, and we will not give you the funding for it. Meanwhile, let's build more housing for blacks on campus. Because that's more important than learning about you know German history. Um, So
So
that's it.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, what was that for again?
So an independent study on German expressionism in Germany. It's
Right.
yeah, an independent study is where you go by yourself, and you don't have to go anywhere, but you design a project that you get so much credit for in university, and then you'll have an advisor, who kind of oversees the project, make sure that you're complying with the whatever the requirements are for the program. And yeah, so sadly it didn't go through. I was very upset about it, and but I had this mentality in college that, you know what, I'm going to squeeze this for everything it's worth. I'm going to get every program out of this that I can before I leave, and so I ended up looking at exchange program. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Like, you pay for a year of college at your school, and someone in another country pays for a year of college at their school, and then you just swap places. You go, you know, use their year, and they use your year, and so you're not, in a sense, paying for anything other than the plane ticket. And that's where I discovered the program in Japan. And so I had already been turning the show into a Japan show. It's, Art of Europa, But
Yeah.
sadly, that the German thing always, and I often wonder how very, very different my life would be had I gone to Germany instead. I guarantee I would have become like
Yeah.
something. I would have been on a totally different path in life,
I think different path, but yeah, it's all hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's life is tricky like that. You just, but I this is the thing about my son is I think whatever you decide right now could determine the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big thing, and I want you to be careful about your choices. It's not all, and he's doing the same thing I did, where I want to do what my friends are doing.
Yeah.
So you have to try to say okay, well, I don't need to do a fatherly lecture for the show, I don't think. But,
Yes. I think. I mean, my nephew is. I got some nephews there, sort of in the late teens, and
okay.
they're growing up fast and getting into girls and
Oh yeah,
girlfriends. And
that's the fun
one of my
part, right?
nephews, he's a bit more of a sensitive type guy. Not, I won't say sensitive, but he's a nice guy.
Okay.
And I think nice guys, when nice guys learn girls and women, trying to understand women, they tend to come off worse.
Yes.
Because the nature of the woman is to always try and push the boundaries of the man.
Absolutely.
And a nice guy tends to be a bit more passive, kind of agreeable, and okay, and thinks the world and dotes on. And
right. He's trying to be a gentleman and all
tend to learn the hard way about women.
Yeah.
Um,
Not a good way.
Yeah. So, I think you need to be very careful who you give your heart to in life.
Oh God.
Because
that's a perfectly said little thing there.
I mean, there's a scripture. It says the heart is the wellspring of life. If you give your heart to someone who is toxic, or can give you is going to give you a turbulent ride of emotions every day, then
sure,
your life's going to be different, very different to if you give it to a woman who is uplifting, a virtuous woman who's not going to cause you to jealousy, not going to cause you to anger, not going to put you down, not going to demean you. When a woman plays her role perfectly and a man plays his role perfectly, obviously we're not perfect, but when we
speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, when we attach ourselves to these kind of rules and
Yeah.
roles, and we do better for each other, and that's why a lot
Well,
of Western
mhm.
society is crumbling today because the gender
Yeah.
roles are reversed, the gender roles have collapsed.
Hmm.
And that's part of it. Men can't be men anymore because I mean, even scared to ask women out on a date. Um,
Well, I think they can, and they have to, But
yeah.
I'm very, very much plugged into the stuff you're talking about. Let me take a quick look at the chat. There's been a whole bunch of comments, and I just sort of respond
Cool.
a little bit with our friends in the chat. Put something
Yeah,
on the
same.
screen here for you to look at. Hang on.
Just a shout out to people in the chat from my end. Hello, Jimmy Hanman. Thanks for sharing and tuning in. And Mayfair Carpenter, thanks again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you have any comments you'd like to make on things that you find beautiful about Europe, what is it about Europa that you find most beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
And please share, and we will
For sure. For
discuss.
sure. Yes, indeed. That goes for my subscribers as well. I want to say hello to Splattercat. So happy to have you here. My super close friend, the most awesome Imminent Rain, uh, is here. This guy is I can't say enough good about him. He's learning comic book drawing, and I'm working with him on that. Massive friend. Mac is back. Your line work and coloring choices are straight delicious, Donald. That's the nicest. That was a very, very, very sweet thing to say. Thanks. I appreciate that a lot. Clay models are great for making your art. Yeah, I would love to get back into sculpture. Believe it or not, I've done that as well. Imminent Rains, just kind of see, that's a great reference. Donald Kent would be quite a combination. I'd buy that tour T-shirt. Oh yeah, two of us in a band together. Oh no, you're talking about Jack White and I. That'd be fun. So what else? My channel's here. Good to have you here, big guy. Our people are the most beautiful thing about Europe. The other can't compare, says Splattercat. Yeah, that's interesting because, like, the topic of jealousy has come up with a lot of people that are involved in our movement, and just kind of saying, like, why, like, what drives this hatred of whites among non-whites, and and a lot of it is a jealousy. And it's like sort of braggadocious to talk like that, but I think it comes through pretty clearly. I think it's pretty
Hmm.
obvious. Yeah. um not that not that that matters to us. Like, we're not going to lord anything over anyone. It's just, you do you and we'll do us, and leave us alone. Because, like,
Pretty
the
much.
the the overall, all we really want is to be left alone. That's all we want.
Yeah,
Like, we don't want to colonize anyone. We don't want to, like, lord over anyone or control anyone. We have everything we need, and we just want to be left alone. That's it. So I'm there. There
exactly.
might be some imperialists or somebody kind of monarchists or something or other that are kind of floating around our spheres, but I think I speak generally. That's generally true. Hank Lee has just arrived. This is me. I'm here but can't stay. Well, it's good. Thanks for popping in, Mr. Lee. There's a poem about men that just want to be left alone. Yeah, I heard about that one. Splatter Cat. Anyway, I am miles behind Patriarch here. He's cooking, and I'm still looking. You know what I mean? So, I've today's been a crazy day. I made an announcement at the beginning of the show that I might have to leave abruptly. There's something going down at work where I'm kind of on call, and so, like, my head is a bit screwed up right now with that, so it's a little harder to be creative under those circumstances. But I feel that I can at least bring some love to the show, just looking at some nice artwork and talking
Yeah, of
about
course.
our people.
We
And
can.
the show doesn't the art doesn't just exist on the show. We do other work outside, and bring it to the show per se, like, try to finish up what we did last year, last show, for example.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice for this show to, like last week, Alexander the Great, it turned into a bit of a history show,
Yeah, yeah, that was cool.
So I quite like the fact that it's not just art; it's a bit of a chat. It's a bit informative.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm. A little bit of history, a
again
little
just
culture.
appreciating. We are celebrating our history and our culture, aren't we? So that's
Absolutely,
the.
absolutely,
I think that's part of it.
100%. You know, it's funny. I was doing one of my comic streams, and I had my buddy CG on. At the moment, I was a little bit black pilled about things, and he just had an encouraging word about, what we are doing, like you and I and people in the arts, is so uplifting to everybody else, that they really love that we're not just kind of, having to deal with all the negativity all the time. That there's another side to the movement, and that of course is the culture and the arts.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of gets back
Yeah.
to the concept of beauty. So let's toss a question out to people in the chat. What is beauty? Define beauty, and why is it important? That's a pretty common question in the arts. And I think it's actually a philosophical question as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. All
Big
right.
shout out to Rill. Thanks for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
What is beauty? I mean, there's that cliche saying, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder," right?
Yeah, I wonder what the context of that is exactly. Like, what does that specifically refer to? Was there, is it something from literature? Uh,
Um,
one
I think
wonders.
it's a cope for no,
A
I don't
cope?
know. I was gonna say it's a cope for people that aren't beautiful. No,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's
Oh
not
my
at all.
God.
I think it just alludes to people see things differently. Like we all have
Sure,
different tastes, and
sure, sure.
you know,
Yeah, sure.
like different cultures, different people, different cultures are going to appreciate different things. And that's
Oh, no
part of the
doubt.
culture, isn't it?
No doubt.
That's
Yeah.
part of it. Us as white Europeans,
Hmm, hmm.
we are going to have a greater appreciation for certain things that others don't.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, that goes back to like the white people thing show, where we were talking about how whites would, save animals, or do just crazy fun things just for the joy of it,
Yeah,
and like that's part of being white. There's something there, that the aesthetic of life, um, seeing just all of those things. It's all part of who we are. So it's kind of
yeah.
nice.
Part of the idea, what I think, part of the idea for artwork is it's not always the composition, is it? Sometimes the lighting can help really frame the idea, I think.
Hmm, hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so what I'm creating here is just a general scene, very basic scene. That's
Hmm.
okay. Yeah.
So I came up with an idea. I obviously always sketch these things lightly. I've got this kind of religious framing. I don't know what to call it exactly. I'm sure there's a name for that. I showed it earlier, and
An
then
arch.
an arch. I know that much, but there must be a specific like art word for it or something. Anyway, and then I'll have a man with a shield and a sword, which that's kind of a theme with me: the shield and the sword, the male and the female, the balance.
Uh-huh.
And then sitting in front of him will be his wife holding a child. So it's
Cool.
the kind of the sacredness of the family. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like framing the man,
Yeah,
woman, and
yeah, yeah.
child in this kind of religious framework. It creates a context that I think you get the idea here. Let me read the
Yeah, yeah.
chat.
Completely.
Read the chat for a sec. Let's see. Spider cat. Beauty to me is the objective aesthetic. I a thing that no one but the most vile of people can see as ugly. I hope that makes sense. Objective beauty. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, I think that, in general, people would agree that certain landscapes or sunsets or flowers or etc. have objective beauty. I think that we can pretty clearly say that there's definite paintings and sculptures and songs that have beauty, like Moonlight Sonata is beautiful, for example. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think if you can't see that, then yes, maybe you are vile. Like that's a strong. It's funny when artists get angry. Like, can you not see the beauty in this, you vile thing? But
I think what a lot of modern art has become.
yeah,
One thing I used to and really enjoy going to was the Tate Modern when I was younger, and
awesome.
well, I say Tate Modern. I would say more museums, but Tate Modern was on the list of places to visit because it was free, and if you're going to visit, spending a day in London going to visit museums, you just go to the Tate Modern because
I'm
there are
aware of the
classical
Tate.
stuff. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
aware of the Tate. It's world class.
But
World class.
one thing I did notice is what art became is the absence of beauty in a lot of things, and it became
Now it is.
now, yeah, it seems to have become a place where people can just pass off like their own sort of personal uh, either deluded or distorted fetishes as art and get away with it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's like
I think I have a
it's
really good story to illustrate this. So I lived in Asia for 5 years. I came back. I thought, I'm going to start my life over. I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to be an art teacher. And so I went to the state program for that to get certified.
okay.
And I'm in the class. I'm older now. I'm not like 20 something. I've exhibited in New York City. I've exhibited in Japan and Taiwan. I'm a totally, accomplished artist in my own right. So, I'm in the class, and then there's these two women that are closer to my age, and they are very, very liberal, feminists,
Hmm.
the whole what everything, the whole thing. And since I've been living in Asia for so long, they they had this kind of like, well, let me get you up to date on what art is. So like
Right.
I would say things and make statements or blah 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 in class, and then they would say, oh no, that's not art anymore, that's old white men, that now it's all about diversity and gender and sexuality, and all of that stuff is patriarchal, and like the arts stopped doing that a long time ago, like get with the program. And
Yeah.
you can imagine, like, immediately that put me on the back foot. I'm like, oh, you want to fight? Okay, let's fucking go. Like,
You
take
wanna
the
like
gloves off. I will
I'll
go in
show
the
you
ring, and
patriarchy.
I will I will knock the shit out of you. I'm waving my fists around, like, come on, let's go. And so I was like, holy shit, this is not what I signed up for. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
had good relations. I was friends with those women. I managed to, somehow be friends with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I know,
I thought you
I
was
know.
about to say I managed to well, it's a long story and a few drinks in a bar. Yeah.
That's I won't go there, but that's another
Okay,
story.
okay. Yes,
I
another
mean,
story.
I'm
It's-
I'm a they both of them were married, but like anyway, I'm not gonna. I don't
Donald.
sleep with married women. I'm not.
Donald.
I know that's what I'm trying to say is I don't do that. So
Yeah,
like, but
yeah.
it puts a man in a very precarious place when a married woman is coming on to him, and you're like,
Well, yeah. They wanted a bit of patriarchy behind closed doors, is what they wanted.
what is it?
Yeah.
Something in the on the streets and something in the sheets or something. What's that one? Like
I
radical.
once did I tell you what I did speaking of comics, which I did
Yeah.
this at university. Obviously the
Mhm.
arts are generally quite liberal,
Yeah.
And we did it was visual communication, the degree that I did, and in the second year it was an we basically every year you did different modules that you chose to specialize more and more into what it is that you want to create. And this was in particular was an illustration based module. And hello, the sounds, does it sound all right for you?
Well, I just got a phone call. I'm streaming on my phone, and the phone like garbles everything up. It stopped the audio for a second. That was not the phone call that I'm looking for, so I hung up. It's probably a spam or something. But I apologize.
I think it's fine now.
You went to college and then something.
Yeah. Okay. So I was doing this module, and it was comic based, and I wrote this story actually, and it was about a futuristic utopian story where there was this man, mankind diverged, split off into a part of the humanity went deep underground into the caves and started to develop over time different senses and so on, and it was full of like prophecy, and on the center, on the humans on the earth. They went down a different path as well, and that path is where the women came in charge, and there was a queen called Jezebel, which basically she dethroned the patriarchy essentially, and this sounds kind of a bit.
And I guess I think the feminists are jamming our signal right now. That's what it's sounding like.
No, it's a conspiracy.
That's super weird. I can't make heads or tails out of that. Oh, you know what? I lost your artwork as well. Let me get that back on the screen if I can. Hold on. Talk a little more. Let me see what's going on.
Hello.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you off my screen and then bring you back in.
Okay.
All right. How are we doing, bud? Are you there?
Yeah, I am. The audio is still a little bit distorted.
All right, hold on. I'm going to try again. So I guess my voice is coming.
Yeah, that's a lot better now. Yeah, yours is a lot better now. Yeah.
Awesome. So all right.
So what was the story about? It was about so they were trained to hate men, and basically the scene starts by this man kind of climbing, and then he gets to the top and comes out of this cave, emerges, and he's kind of taking these big deep breaths, climatizing to the natural atmosphere.
Okay.
And then he finally kind of comes to, and then he looks into the distance, and this is desert, and there's these men, skinny, scrawny men, and they're in line, kind of being kind of whipped as slaves and kind of kept in line, and they're ruled over by these women, and they have really long hair, and the hair is their like gown type thing. So it's a bit of a sensual type comic, and they used to use their hair, and they'd flick their heads, and the hair would just go and whip the man like whoosh, and I used some of them sounds like whoosh. And they were kind of like one of the men, slave, scrawny man, kind of tried to answer back, and then they kept him in check, told him that he was a mere man. And obviously this guy who emerged from the cave, who's like destined to rule and bring humanity back together again.
Right.
He intercedes, and he kind of catches this the hair from the woman who's about to whip this man, and he yanks it down. And what reminded me of it is, although they're against the patriarchy, their natural inclination is always to gravitate to manliness and masculinity, however much they want to oppress it.
That's true.
That kind of reminded me of that comic. That's all. And the moments that you probably shared with that feminist woman who just couldn't get enough of your oozing bearded manliness.
So that's funny, the bearded thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to go down that road to get into like explaining hypergamy and feminism, and I know like a huge amount about all of those things. Um, it's such an important and central topic to our movement, and our future.
Hmm.
It's also pretty hard for a lot of people to talk about. You know me, I'm always a guy that's about unity. I'm always about us, respecting and working together, respecting each other, etc. So on the one hand, I always want to be a gentleman and respectful to women. Simultaneously, everybody has to take ownership for their actions. And my feeling in general is that men have to, after centuries, finally figure out that women are not men, and their brains, their biology is different, and then if we can look at that the way we look at anything objectively, scientifically, then we can solve this problem, and we can know how to act. And so, like, biology is king at the end of the day, and
Mm.
that's something that I think people in our movement should, easily embrace. I mean, we're race realists. We know the truth of DNA, biology, all of that. So it really isn't an insult or disrespectful to explain the psychology of women, how it works, why it works the way that it works. The danger, of course, excuse me, is our enemies weaponizing this information. If you look at the whole concept of psychoanalysis and Freud, it's one of the biggest Jewish psyops out there. The idea of like, let's found a science on psychology, and then, like, tell people that they have everything sexual and perverted and on. I mean, it's just dark shit.
Well,
Where then
like
you've got
phallic stuff and Freudians. Yeah, I
it's
remember
very
did a bit of
it's
psychology.
yeah, it's very twisted stuff. Whereas Carl Jung, on the other hand, is one of the great geniuses of our people, sort of a genius of the 20th century. It's interesting, Freud was Jewish. Jung, of course, wasn't. I just saw, pardon me, I just saw a show on Carl Jung's quotes anti-Semitism, and he wasn't anti-Semitic. He didn't do anything, overtly anti-Semitic. He blah blah blah. I'm not going to turn the show into that, but
Mm.
his work stands out extremely, in great contrast to Freud's work, and is way healthier. Like, it's much healthier. So
So what is the gist of his work? I'm not too familiar with him.
that's a gigantic question right there. There's no, like, easy, quick answer for that. But some things that I would talk about is his segue into metaphysics, his recognition of the spiritual dimension of the human, of like overall human health.
Mm.
Um, uh, Understanding the sort of the dark side of your nature, your psychology. It just overall, it's not Freud, like,
Okay.
saying like it's not Freud itself is a description of his work, meaning it's not all based on these weird dark, everything's sexualized. Like, that's a creepy approach to life, to frame everything as if it's all sexual. But that's
Right. Okay.
materialism. That's what materialism does. It boils you down to chemicals. That you're just a
Yeah.
bunch of
True.
chemical processes. And that's like, what's the word I'm looking? That's degenerate. That's what's the word I'm looking for? Not degenerate. It subverts. It's subversive.
Hmm.
You know. I mean, to say that that's what psychological medicine is a very dark approach. Anyway, we're kind of changing from the topic of beauty into psychology here, but yeah, feminism, I think, is our one of the greatest weapons of our enemies. Probably I should put a shirt on this guy. That would make more sense.
I can't see your screen anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to move my screen around here. I wanted to give my audience a closer look at your work for a second.
Okay. I'll just full screen my own.
Yeah, I'll go to layouts. How does that? No. There. Okay.
Yeah, cool. So I'll just explain my approach so far. I'm just doing, if you tuned in early to the oh, the sound's gone a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have any idea how that happened. I did switch my camera. You know what? I think I know. Let me see. I think I might have figured it out. Hang tight.
Okay, try to figure it out. I'll just mute your mic for now. I'm just going to explain my ideas so far. Okay, so initially I set out to create some landscapes, and I'm going into my comfort zone whereby I like to take existing statues and then put them in a landscape setting so they look really grandiose and just really a part of the scene. And I just wanted to highlight the beauty of Europa through nature and just sort of iconic imagery. So you've got large, giant megalithic statues amongst a sort of scenic landscape there. Here is a similar idea, but we have the statues on hills at the top there, and I need to add in some shadows and things alike just to add a bit of drama here like this, which lighting can really make or break an image, I think. Here we have an odd piece. It's almost like peering through a cave, and this large statue is looking down as a person is looking up at the statue, admiring, and maybe it's a kind of a place where, you know, there's kind of the new is coming into the old world and reminiscing in this big cave and witnessing a beauty that's kind of just emerging, and the light. I don't know if there's some kind of symbolic meaning that could bring in there, but essentially a dark cave lit by a newly found tunnel onto iconic statues and relics and things like that. And this is a setting of a large statue-based figure embedded within the landscape and the curves of the landscape. Obviously, this isn't just a normal-sized woman; it's a essentially like a carving statue, but embedded in the hills, and there would be lots of sort of foliage and trees around here. Let's get a different brush. Yeah, different foliage and I don't know, natural elements, and then the contours of the woman, kind of lit by the sun and the light cast upon the sea. Just a nice different landscape. So yeah, these are the three ideas so far, and I'm not sure which route to go down just yet. I think the top left is the best composition. It's the safest option. So yeah, there we are so far. That's my ideas.
The safest option. I mean, just in terms of talking about art, it's funny. Like this would be the safest art, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, the one that's least likely to go wrong, the one I'll struggle less with.
No, I get you. I just think it's funny, you know.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at like medieval armor right now and trying to come up with some nice. Oh, see, your audio is going funky again.
I don't know what's going on for that.
when I have your screen on, like pretty much that's the dominant screen right now. It like the audio fixed itself for a second. Let me. Like, I don't know. I just seem to think that like the layout is having something to do with that. I don't know.
Possibly.
Well,
Big shout out to Mayfair Carpenter. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, we've never had this problem before, have we? With the alien sound voice. And Donald has disappeared. Hello, Donald. Hello, Natty. Nice to see you. Real. Thanks for tuning in. Natty is a guest with me on Mock's Patriotic 18 gaming stream. We had some good fun last week. It was really sad to potentially have a last stream with Sam. We're hopeful that he's gonna get a suspended sentence.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I got to head out. So I just got the call from work. So I hate to cut it short.
Okay, buddy.
All right, God bless you guys. Take care.
Take care. Over and out from Donald.